All right, everybody. Session 10. This is your last very serious one. And the session 11 will be more of a summary and kind of where do we go from here and kind of a wrap-up. So this is Finances Part B. We just finished. Again, it depends on how long it's been since the last one. We gave you a pretty tough homework assignment with the last one. So you may have taken a few weeks to really dial that in, and we'll get to that in a second. But today, during this session, we're going to focus on the company side of the finances. We're going to look at rates, setting those rates, packaging those rates. How does it differ for individuals versus organizations? What does that look like in terms of potential long-term revenue? We'll revisit the idea of the multiple streams of income. In fact, I think I grabbed a section from that last slide to pull it in as a reminder of that. We're going to look at budgeting and how to focus on that. Now, again, as with all of these are meant to be an introduction. So if you've got a business that's been going for 5-6 years, you've got your full income statement, your bookkeeper's keeping track of all your cash flow statements and income statements and those kinds of things, then some of this you might go, well, we have a few more categories than that. Of course you do. This is meant to get you started on the right path and maybe alert you to a couple of things, when it comes to budgeting, alert you to a couple of things that are being left out. In terms of rates and all that, that is one of the most common questions we get. So that will be an interesting conversation in your cohorts. I'll give you some guidance as we go through it here as well. So homework assignment, not shooting for perfection, but we need a plan. If we're desperate, we're not running our business well. If we're desperate, we're terrible at sales. If we're desperate, we make bad decisions about finances in other ways. So don't have to be perfect, don't have to get to the point of being debt-free, but get that plan in place before you move into your business side of these numbers. So, all right, with that, let's talk about this whole idea of pricing. I don't want to disappoint you, but you're not going to get a number today. I'm not going to say to you, this is what you should charge. Now, if that disappoints you, you need to look at how business models work. I have no idea what you're offering. Are you doing on-site? Are you doing face-to-face? Are you doing telephonic? Are you doing a mix of that? Are you traveling to your client? Are they traveling to you? Do you have other complementary services that you provide, like the group challenges? Maybe you do a quarterly group challenge people can jump into. Are you doing lunch and learns for an organization that you work with? Are you going on site? Maybe you have another skill set. You're a physical therapist or a massage therapist or a personal trainer or a nutritionist or a physician. Or are there other complementary services that you roll into your packages? You see what I'm saying? You can't say this is what a wellness coach charges. It's not possible. So my goal today is to get you thinking based on what you're going to offer or what you're currently offering, what should that initial number be? You're going to tweak that. We learned over time, and I'll use a few examples of what we've done with U.S. Corporate Wellness over the, I guess we just started our 10th year, so over those 9+ years that we've been doing this, we've learned a lot about pricing. You're going to learn a lot about it too. So be flexible with that. Don't hang yourself out of the gate. But there's some basic things that you can look at to help create those rates. Now, the first thing I'm going to focus in on is those individual rates. So if you're working with individual clients, meaning one person, they come to you as their personal wellness coach, build off of that. From there, we will move into if you're going to work with companies, employers, organizations, and how that whole thing works. So these are your pricing considerations that fit into both categories, both the individuals and if you're working with organizations. I didn't say supply and demand out loud. Obviously, that is a huge component of any pricing structure of any product or service ever offered on the face of the earth. So, so those are your basics. Format, who travels, other things that you add into the mix, and then the whole issue of supply and demand. Now, one pretty effective way to get your baseline, to get this ball rolling, this doesn't give you your number. You don't want to just say, well, massage therapists in our area charge basically $1 a minute, 60 bucks an hour. So most of my sessions are 30 minutes. I'm going to charge 30. Okay, that might be a good baseline. But what else is involved? Massage therapy is literally it's a timed element. You are literally laying on the chair or the table or whatever it is, and you're getting a massage for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Wellness coaching, when done well, incorporates a number of different things. For example, you've got access to the Wellness Nation for the next 6 months. That gives you the option of doing group challenges. It gives you the option of having things tracked that you can then review with that person. I'm training for some different events right now, and I like it. I like knowing that the coach that I'm working with is able to look at those things and give me feedback. You can do the same thing. So it's not just that 20 or 30-minute coaching session. It's all these other components. So be careful with that. And then you add to that, maybe you offer emails throughout. You're not emailing your massage therapist, well, you know, my neck. I mean, you might, but it's part of their marketing. For you, it's part of your actual service. So these are some of the things that you might want to use as a comparison point. And it helps to look at this in your area versus national trends. So, for example, personal trainers, huge range. A lot of reasons for that. And some of those reasons relate very closely to wellness coaching. For example, where is it offered? Who is the typical clientele? What's their background? What's their reputation? What testimonials do they have? See, all of those components tie into what you do as a wellness coach too. So that might be a good comparison. Pilates, triathlon, running, cycling coach, swim coach, private swim lessons, mentioned massage, nutritionist, business coaching, yoga. So these are the types of things that you might look at. You might also use these as a baseline to come up with packages. I would encourage you, we're going to talk a little bit about monthly rates with this. I would encourage you to focus in on some sort of a package deal. So you're not charging them for coaching, you know, this coaching session is this much. You want to package these things together. Yeah, there's a book, $1 Million Consultant. Alan Weiss, I think, was the author. Sitting on my bookshelf. I think I had 2 copies at one point. I gave one to somebody, and I can't remember what happened to it. But it's a good book, and his main topic, his main concept, is that you do not want. No, it doesn't matter if you're, you know, the highest paid wellness coach in the world. At some point, you're going to run out of hours, and you're going to top out on what people are willing to spend. And so his point is the more you can package things, the more you can outcome base what you're charging for, the more successful you'll be on the revenue side. So that's where you want to get into, not offering, I charge this much for a coaching session, but I charge this much per month as your wellness coach. You see the difference? And then you can package that together into a 6-month package or an annual package, and they get a little discount if they sign up for 6. They can go month to month, but in that case, it's going to be 20% more. They can get, basically, you reverse that. It's a 20% discount if you sign up for the year-long package or the 6-month package. So that's what you're starting to do here, is you're looking at comparable options. Now, maybe there are other wellness coaches that you can find data on what they charge, but probably not. Again, because the variability. Massage, yes, there are better massage therapists and worse. There are nicer locations and worse. But you know what that is. That's a thing. It's a minute-by-minute thing. Wellness coaching, you might have a friend 6 miles away from you that does wellness coaching. But are they certified? How do they do it? What do they offer? So you've got to answer all these other questions before you can use that as a comparison. Now, in terms of pricing considerations, let's talk through a few things here. In fact, let me pop up each of the bullets. We can talk it through. I think there's, yeah. Tiers. For those of you who I've had a chance to huddle up with during our Denver certification, we've talked a lot about this, but let me review it here because it's huge. I would encourage you to offer 3 tiers. You can offer 4, you can offer 2. I mean, there's nothing magical about 3, but 3 works well. It's a great starting point. And what I mean by tiers is you have your standard. So I'll just throw out an example. Standard is, actually, I think I've got a slide later that goes through some examples of this. So just know that that would be your middle zone. And then you've got your premium. That's for your person that they want you available practically 24/7. They want to be able to email you anytime, get a response right back. They want to have unlimited coaching, or they want to have at least 2 sessions a month instead of 1, or 4 sessions a month instead of 1. They want to have access to all the tools and resources you have, those kinds of things. So that might be your premium. Then you have your standard, and then you have your either entry or exit one. You're going to have people that start off with you and it's going well, and they hit a hard spot in life. They're not going to be able to access the wellness coaching as much. If you have 1 tier, they'll drop off. But if you have 3 tiers, and maybe the lowest tier is just, maybe it's called a maintenance tier or a maintenance program, and it's something where maybe you only do a coaching session every 2 months, but they can email you a couple times a month, and maybe it's really inexpensive for them. Well, that gives them an option for the person that's debating about it. That might be the entry point. They come in under the maintenance program, that coaching session has a big impact, and boom, they move to your standard level. Or vice versa, they go through that tough period, and they drop down to maintenance instead of stopping. And then they can jump back in at a higher level once life kind of gets under control, or once your wellness coaching helps them get their life back under control. So tiers are very, very important, and I obviously do not mean crying with your clients, although that has its place. Second one, start low, and there's a pretty good chance you get stuck there. You don't know your number right now, and I don't know your number. Too many variables, location, all the things we just talked about. But if you start, your tendency is going to be to start way too low, because you want to get people in the door, you want to give them a chance, you're not fully confident yet, and so you come in, and let's just to pick a random number, let's say eventually you're going to charge $75 a month for XYZ package that includes all these other things. But you're thinking out of the gate you just need to get some people, and that is true. So you're going to charge $25 a month for the first few months to get things started. Makes sense, right? Yeah, but no. There's this thing called anchoring. Once we see a price, and we've got a shop down the road from us called Kohl's, and they love the concept of anchoring. You go to Kohl's and you walk through and you want a pair of socks, and they're normally $4,000, but today $295. It's just they get you to anchor to the normally, and then, but we've got a great deal for you. It works in reverse also. If you're used to X price, even if it's not a reasonable price, even if it's a very low price, and you maybe even know that logically, but when it goes up, you feel like, yeah, there's no way, it's not worth it. So don't use this anchoring to your benefit. Follow the Kohl's model if you have to. And what I mean by that is, we said 75 is your example that we're using here. Well, okay, maybe you do want to start with 25, but don't come in saying my rate is $25 a month. Come in saying my rate is $75 a month, period. However, for the first 6 people to register, you'll get your first 3 months at $25 a month. So it's very clear to me that 75 is your normal rate. I'm not thinking 25 is, 75 is. And I anchor to that. And wow, I'm getting this great discount for the first 3 months. So you see the difference? Yes, it's semantics. You start with a low price, you're going to hang yourself later, because if you're at 25 and that's just your price, it's not a temporary discount, it's not for the first 6 people, those kinds of things, then you come back and you say, now it's 75. I'm going to look at you like you have 3 heads. What? A 300% increase? Are you kidding me? What's going on here? So your actual charge can be low. Understand me here. But your price, your rate, is a higher number. And you can build from there. Next one. Your network determines your rates. We talked about in the last session that you become the 5 people you hang out with. Well, you also charge based on the people you hang out with. If you are spending time with CEOs and COOs and VP of Ops, you're going to be able to charge more. You're going to be expected to provide a higher level of service. They go together. But you'll be able to charge more. And the same is true on the other end of the spectrum. So the people you're spending time with, who you're hanging out with, who knows about you, will have a big determination on your rates. And then the final thought here on pricing, and this is where the tiers are also very helpful, is have very clear expectations, and we'll talk about this with contracting with the organizations you work with, but have very clear expectations about what's part of this package. So if you've got the standard package includes 1 coaching session a month, participation in the challenges, options to track everything they want, and 1 email a month, great. And if they're wanting to catch you for 6 other coaching calls that month, or 5 more emails, tell them this is really exciting. I would love to do this. One of the options I've got is a premium option, and it allows you to do this, this, and this. Would you like to move into that level? Yeah, that'd be great. Or no. But you're sending the message that I've got a great service, but I've got to charge for what I provide. And that's why I've set up these 3 tiers. So clear expectations right out of the gate. Don't wait on that. If you delay that communication for a couple of months, you're hung. Again, the anchoring goes to, well, you let me email you 5 times last month. Yeah, but I'm busier now. And again, that's one of the key things here we've talked about all the way through is what makes sense to you in your business when you have 3 clients. Oftentimes makes no sense when you have 30 clients, 50 clients. So make your plan. You're going to grow this business, right? So make your plans based on where you're headed, not where you are. All right, so let's talk about these tiers. Tier 1, monthly coaching session, full access to the web portal, and group challenges. Tier 2, monthly coaching session, full access to portal and group challenges, access to a monthly educational webinar that you're going to do, or a group class that you offer, and up to 3 email exchanges per month. Tier 3, twice monthly coaching, web portal, group challenges, monthly webinar or group class, and unlimited email exchange. You see where this is going? And you got to go into your toolbox to put these tiers together. So this is not the answer. In fact, nothing we're going through is the answer. It's to get you thinking, okay, where can I take this as I move forward? What do these tiers look like? What do I have to offer in this full picture? Now, potential additions. What can you add to the core of what you offer? The core of what you offer is your coaching and the challenges, portal, access, tracking stuff so you can give them feedback. Well, one would be the coaching intensity level. What you offer, and this has to be in your expertise, but let's just say, for example, you're a running coach. And one option would be you can put together not a generic program, but a very specific where you lay out their specific workouts and you go through those with them and maybe even meet them at the track once a week, or they can get access to your track group that meets once a week. So that would be an increase in coaching intensity, frequency, based on some other, same thing if you're a nutritionist, or same thing if you offer other skills. Bonuses be another thing you could add in. Example, maybe you're a massage therapist. Maybe you're not a massage therapist, but you're in a building, you have an office where there is a massage therapist, and you make an arrangement with them that you're going to give out their card, and you'll pay, and they'll give you a discount because you're going to buy 10 cards a month, 10 gift cards a month. And they're like, oh, if you're going to buy 10, I'll do my normal, if it's a 30-minute massage, I'll do my normal 30-minute massage for $15. So maybe that's a bonus you build in. The value is 30. It costs you 15. That's an addition that you could throw into a tier. Your relationship. That's part of the tier. Maybe, and I'm thinking of our daughter. She loves to go out and just have a cup of coffee and visit. And you may have clients that, yeah, the telephonic coaching works fine for them, but if they could sit down with you once a month over a cup of coffee, or maybe it's every 2 months over a cup of coffee, and really dive in a lot deeper, if that works with your schedule, doesn't throw everything off, you need to charge more for that, but maybe that's something that you lay out there. Other services, maybe you're a physical therapist, and you've got a clinic where you've got a bunch of treadmills and Stairmasters and body blades and that kind of thing, and you oftentimes offer a post-discharge program where people can use the equipment. Great. Maybe you can include that as a bonus. Maybe you've got a relationship with a fitness club. There's a lot of discounted fitness clubs out there that are literally 10 to 20 bucks a month. Well, maybe you could build a relationship with them and say, look, I'm going to send all of the clients, give them all the recommendation to come see you. Would you give us the first month for free if I were to do that? Or discount something down. So talk to them. They're looking for people that want to come in, experience it. They know if they're working with you, as they, meaning the individual, is working with you as a wellness coach, that they're on a good path, that they're investing in their life and their health and their wellness. That's a great client for that fitness club. They may very well be interested in that. Now, let's talk through what these numbers could look like. What kind of revenue are we talking about here? What could we turn this into? Now, my caution to you, this is not what it will look like for you, because your rates will be different. They might be higher, they might be lower. Your time spent might be a little more, a little less. So this is an example. And you can work through this and plug in your own numbers. I think I give 4 different examples, but you can see the impact of making a couple of tweaks with this. So let's say that you have 10 clients and you're charging $50 a month for the package. All right, so that's our starting point. Just 10 clients, $50 a month for the package. Generally speaking, and this is a gross over-exaggeration or overgeneralization of what it's going to take you, but generally, if it's a 30-minute coaching session, including a little time for notes, you're going to have 5 hours a month of direct contact, and just build in another 5 hours for other stuff, all the things that we've been talking about. Now, obviously, out of the gate, it's going to be a lot more than that in terms of other stuff. But long term, it may be less than that. So just as a general rule, I think you can double that. Now, remember in the last session we talked about overhead and fixed costs and variable costs. Well, you can limit your fixed cost if you're opting out of your home, obviously. Your overhead, you've already done your certification, or you're in the process of it. So that's done. So those two are not gone for good, but they're limited. Your major thing is your variable costs. And using that portal, obviously, you get it for free for the first 6 months for that first client. But even after that, you're looking at $5 a month per client for that. So that's your variable cost. That's your primary variable cost. And we'll get into a little bit more with this when we get to the budgets. Your miscellaneous costs I didn't include because they vary so much, it would just be picking a number out of a hat. But things like advertising, liability insurance, things we've talked about, not included here, but those are balanced out by the tax benefits that I also did not build in here. Talk to your accountant, but you're going to likely going to save money on cell phone costs being a business expense, internet expenses, maybe part of your car. So talk to your accountant about those. Those probably at least balance out the liability insurance and the advertising, and might even balance out the variable costs as well. Okay, and we're going to use those same items there. All those bolts will remain the same, essentially, except for the top number in the next 3 examples. So 10 clients, $50 per month. You're going to create just under $5 grand a year by spending a couple hours a week on your coaching. Okay, about 2.5 hours a week. That comes out to about $40 an hour, plus any ownership benefits that you get in terms of taxes and those kinds of things. And there's your math on it. So here's our baseline. Just 10 clients, $50 a month. Now I say just. It's very easy for me to say just because I did a PowerPoint slide, and you can make anything with the word just on a PowerPoint slide. It doesn't mean it's easy to get your first 10 clients. Okay? Revisit the sales and marketing stuff to get that rolling if you need to. But literally, if you're serious about this, you're going to get your 10 clients. It may take some time. You're going to have to be patient, but you'll get there. So this is a baseline. Now let's extrapolate this a little further. Let's say we have 25 clients. You've been doing this for a while. You've grown in it. Your testimonials are growing. People are talking about you. You got your systems down. And so now you're up to about 25 clients a month. You're charging the same $50 a month. Let's run through these same assumptions. I don't need to repeat them for you. We increase the time accordingly because it's 25 clients instead of 10. So you're spending about 25 hours a month. What does that produce? It's going to be about 13 grand a year. Okay? And that's about just under 6 hours a week that you're spending on this. Not bad. And again, this is based on some random number that I picked. You may be charging far more. And in fact, our next example, we're going to look at what if you have that same 25 people, but we're charging $65 a month now instead of $50. Remember our conversation about marginal income and how much you make on the next client, and then we take out the fixed costs, the variable costs, and there it is. Well, with this model, that extra $15 you're charging outside of taxes, it's all income. It's 100% income. So you can see as you develop your testimonials, as you develop your reputation, as you develop your credibility, through all these different things that we've been talking about over the last 9 sessions, that becomes pure profit for you. Now, the exception to that would be if part of the reason you charge more is because you offered something that costs you money, like the example we gave of the massage. So maybe you're spending $15 on a massage therapy gift card that you give the client every other month or once a quarter. So you're not going to pocket all of that extra $15. You're going to pocket $45 over a 3-month period or a quarter. You're going to spend $15 on the gift card. So you're going to pocket $30 extra. So all of those variables are involved. But I just want to show you the impact of doing this. So same number of hours, same variable costs, but the outcome bumps to $17,400 for the same less than 6 hours a week of work. Okay. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. And the last one, what if you have 50 clients? Now you're really humming. $65 per client per month. And again, we're not talking organizations here. We're talking individuals. What does that turn into? 25 hours a month, not a week. Direct, double that, so it's 50 hours a month. And that turns into about $35,000 a year. I'm sorry, yeah, $35,000 a year for about 12 hours a week of work. Again, don't get stars in your eye. Neither end. Don't look at it and go, oh, is that all? Well, first of all, multiply that by almost 4 to get a 40-hour week. But don't assume you're going to make that either. It takes time to get there. But I just want to show you what's possible based on different pricing. Now let's revisit the CEO of You Incorporated. I touched on this in the last session and wanted to come back to it in a little more detail here. The You Incorporated it's not just, you've got multiple things you're offering. It's not just your coaching. You have your monthly client members, you have your premium clients or additional coaching sessions you're offering. Maybe you're doing an employee wellness program for 1 or 2 or 3 companies. Maybe you have a partnership program built in. Maybe you're doing some consulting where you go in and help them design their wellness program or wellness strategy. Big need for that. Maybe that's with a benefit consultant firm. Maybe it's with a company and it's a one-off where you just do it once a year. You sit down with them, you charge them a flat fee. So a lot of opportunities, but don't miss those. Don't miss those. There's a lot of different ways that you can drive the revenue. It's not just the direct coaching. All right, so that's your individual side. And with a dipping the toe into the organizational side, let's talk through this concept of organizational pricing. So you're thinking you're going to work with individuals, but you get 6 months into it, and one of your clients is the VP of Human Resources for a middle-sized company of 81 employees down the road, and she asks you, wow, this could be really helpful to our employees. Would you be interested in putting together an employee wellness program for us? Do not say, well, it's your choice, but I would encourage you not to say, no, I only do individual wellness coaching. Why couldn't you put an employee wellness program together? Now, you may not want to, and that's fine, and we can always help you with that if you want us to be the kind of the backdrop of providing the services and you lead that relationship, but you could do that yourself. If you do it, you're not going to charge the way you charge for individuals. For organizations, you're going to use either a PEPM or a PPPM. Those stand for per employee per month or per participant per month. A few comments, few things to keep in mind with this. With the let me just give you a number example here. If they have 75 employees and you're charging a per eligible per month or per employee per month, that means all employees are counted. And let's say you're charging $13 a month. That's just under $1,000 a month. Okay. Now, a few comments with this, and I'm going to circle back this later, but just to get you thinking about it, you've got to protect yourself with this. You've got to know approximately, it doesn't have to be exact, but approximately how many coaching sessions are going to take place. Because one of the disasters that can happen with organizations, and I still get nervous, again, we're in our 10th year now, and I still get a little nervous when I send out the contract, like, oh, I hope I didn't mess this up, because if I did, we're committed to something that we could potentially be losing money on for 3 years. So be very careful how that's written, and we'll talk about that in the contracting. But you've got to have a sense of how much coaching is going to take place, and that'll influence a lot of things. Now, the difference between per employee and per participant, per employee takes into account everybody. Per participant takes into account only those who participate. Now, if you decide to go with a per participant rate, and we rarely do these, you want to have it set up so it's fair to that organization, and that's our emphasis. We do not like the concept that a lot of wellness companies use where you promise unlimited coaching, but you set it up in such a way that very few people ever use the coaching. So you make all kinds of money, but you're not really impacting many lives. Again, maybe you like that idea of making all kinds of money, but I think you're in this business because you want to influence lives. And so when we set up an agreement, we set it up so that nobody loses. If they don't have much coaching going on, then they're not paying as much. If we're doing a lot of coaching, they're going to pay a little bit extra for that. But it's built in from the beginning on what the expectations are, and that is critical. So per employee per month or per participant per month. If you go with a per participant, a little warning here, make sure there's a minimum built into that agreement. So if they've got 75 employees and they don't want to do a PEPM because they only want it to have it apply to those who participate, that's fine, that's fair. But for us to put the energy into organizing this and making the portal available to you and the health risk assessment and those kinds of things, we've got to have a minimum. So you could say that's fine, but it's got to be based on a minimum of 30 participants, for example. Okay? Now, let's build on this a little bit. I just talked about clarifying the service. Your time when you work with an organization can build up a lot. I mean, you think, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to have 75 people I'm working with, and no, they're going to be calling you a lot. I mean, the organizer of it is going to be calling you a lot, which is great. But did you count on that? They're going to want you to come over and meet with them, and they're a consultant, which is great. But did you count on that? So make sure that you consider every possible need that they're going to have that's spelled out in that contract that you've laid out, because otherwise you're going to end up devoting all your time to this company. And $1,000 a month is great, but it doesn't pay all the bills. So clarify your services specifically. Ask them exactly what they want. And then if you're not sure, you can always say, any added services will build in at this fee. We've started doing that with our IT services, for example, because we're able to customize the portal for these companies. But sometimes what we're explaining and what they end up wanting is almost like a kitchen remodel or something. You know, you come in saying, oh, I want new cabinets, and then when it's done, you want new marble cabinets. So we've just started saying for IT, totally fine. We can customize whatever you want. That'll be billed. We won't make money on this. That'll just be billed out at a rate of X number of dollars per hour. So I encourage you to do similar. We talked about protecting your downside and coaching frequency. If it's going to truly be unlimited and you're going to be reaching out to these folks and you're going to have 60 of the 75 people participating and doing 4 calls a month, you're in trouble. Like, really? $13 a month to cover all that? That's not going to do it. So protect your downside. If there's going to be more coaching, it needs to be more fee. Talked about the additional downtime with the first bullet there and the clarifying expectations. Talk through the things that you offer them. For example, the team challenges. Companies love that stuff. It's a great add-on. Lunch and Learns. If there's a local company, I don't think Lunch and Learns are necessarily hugely effective things in terms of creating behavior change. I think that's where coaching has to be involved. But companies love it. It's like this extra thing they get to offer their employees, and everybody gets together. It's more of a team-building thing than anything, and you can share some valuable information in the process. Health risk assessments. You offer one of the best health risk assessments out there. Now, you've got to have minimum of 50 people, and that's why I've got this last note on here, in order to pull data, aggregate reports. But at a minimum, even if they only have 30 participants, you can have them go through their HRA, and you can talk them through it and make sure. HRAs have almost no value on their own. It's what you do with the HRA that makes a difference. Now, if you have a company with more than 50 participants, contact me. We'll set something up for you in terms of the pricing. The pricing drops quite a bit at 100, but we'll want to set up that 50 plus a little different so you can pull those aggregate reports a little bit easier. All right, contracting. What are the things you need to keep in mind with contracting? First, use an attorney. You don't have to use them for every contract, but at least sit down or contact them and have them put your initial one together. I may have shared earlier that when we first started, we paid the attorney for our first 7 contracts that we had drawn up, and it ate away at our margins like crazy because it's not cheap. You're going to spend $1,000, $1,200 having a contract put together. So plan on that. But ask them, instead of, tell them your situation. Hey, I'm a small business owner. I need an agreement that I can tweak with each client. Now, they're going to want to tell you all the reasons you can't do that, and some of those are very good reasons, but you need to share with them, look, I can't pay you for each one of these. I can't charge enough to do that. So use an attorney, but use them sparingly, if you will. Be careful using your attorney. Build in plenty of time into that contract. And this is coming back to our last slide of you're going to be doing a lot of other things. Make sure you covered your value, the value of your time in what you've agreed to. Be flexible, but keep it meaningful. So you're going to have a lot of requests for, oh, can you reduce this? Can you tweak that? Can you take this section out? Yeah, it's not locked in stone. You provide them the contract. They look at it. They're going to have some requests. But make sure that when the contract is signed that it still means something, and it doesn't just basically say, we'll pay you till we feel like it, and we'll pay you when we feel like it. Because that might as well not even be a contract. I've learned this the hard way. There's no agreement until there's an agreement. Until that is signed, you do not have an agreement. And if you have to say to them, actually there are two ways to approach this. You can say to them, you know, we're supposed to start next week. I don't have the agreement yet. Is there any chance you can get that to me? Or you can take the other approach of, look, we've talked about this. You've set it up. You've sent it out to your employees. We're moving forward as if a contract's in place. So just decide which route you're going to go, but know that technically, until there's actually a signed agreement in place, there's no agreement. Now, what should you have in that agreement? Number one, the terms. Exactly what you offer. Spelled out to the letter, everything. We include in our contracts additional services that are available. We don't set prices to those things. We just have a list of these things can be added at a future date if desired. Indicate pricing, how it's billed. I actually, with the PEPM, I've started building in examples of this will be your typical month, so there's no confusion. And when it's due. Are they to pay within 30 days? Are you going to give them 60 days? I'd encourage you to at least start with that 15 to 30-day range. It's going to help your cash flow quite a bit. Your confidentiality and non-disclosure is going to be built in there. You have a termination clause. Again, be fair with this. They should not be on the hook with you if you're not providing good service. But you're putting a lot of time in on the front end. And so if they can just stop the contract at any point, that's not fair to you. So the whole idea of an agreement, the whole idea of a contract is to make it fair for both parties. So in your termination clause, what we encourage, or what we do, I should say, and I guess what I'm encouraging now, is have a termination clause that says, look, if we're not living up to your expectations, we have 30 days to fix it, or you have an out at any point. We just have to be alerted. That's fair. It doesn't say that they have to pay you forever, even if you're an idiot. It says, hey, if we're not doing something that you think needs to be done, maybe it was just a communication issue. Tell us. Give us a little time to fix it, not 6 months. Put a little time. And if we don't, you're free. You're done. But you want that termination clause in there. And then, and this is the technical word, mumbo jumbo, you're going to need some additional legal mumbo jumbo, and your attorney will take care of all that. Okay, last section. And I'm looking at the time. We're going to go just over 45 minutes on this one, but a lot of stuff to get through, so I think it's worth it. And it's your last big one. So budgeting basics. You're creating a budget. What does it look like? What are the things you want to focus on? The first one is to be incredibly aware of cash flow. Cash flow is the killer for small businesses. So you want to make sure how much cash flow am I going to have, and that's where your accounts receivable comes in. Do you get paid within 30 days by everybody? Is it oftentimes closer to 60 days? Going to be longer than 60 days? And then accounts payable. Do you have employees that you've got to pay? Do you have other services you have to pay? Things like as simple as phone bills and those kinds of things. That's your accounts payable. When are those due? And how do those match up? Because the difference between accounts payable and accounts receivable is essentially what creates your cash flow. Now, what happens with cash flow is you've got plenty of, in quotes, money because people owe you money, but you don't have it yet. And as a small business owner, what does that mean? It may mean drawing on those credit cards. So that's where forecasting comes in. That's where looking ahead and saying, we're going to have this expense coming out, we're going to have that expense going on, we're going to have this big expense that isn't a normal expense that we need to save in advance for. That's real. Budgeting is similar to what we're doing on a personal level. How much are we going to spend in each category? How much are we going to make for each category? And then the forecasting helps you plan for those things. So here's an example. Your sales, And again, this isn't just your coaching. This is all your stuff, all the categories. Well, that's your gross income or gross revenue, whichever you want to call it. Then you have your operating expenses, and that's your expenses. So marketing, advertising, insurance, your portal, note system, your office supplies, your rent, your phone, professional development, and the big category of miscellaneous. You subtract operating expenses from sales, that gives you your net income. And that's what you're really interested in. Now, you're in a little different situation. You are your main salary expense. In most service organizations, salary expenses are the biggest single expense. You may get to a point at some time down the future where you do have employees. You need to be aware of that. That's going to be a big line item for you. But for now, the net income is essentially your salary as a business owner. So how do we utilize the budget? It helps us forecast that cash flow so that we don't end up drawing on credit cards, so we don't end up with those extra expenses. We're able to do quarterly or annual comparisons. Okay, I had 6 clients last quarter, I have 10 clients this quarter, but my net income's the same? Wait, what's going on here? Or last year, I averaged 23 clients a month. This year, I'm at 29 clients a month. Thumbs up, way to go. It allows you to target annual goals realistically. So that once you have a couple of years of data, or at least a couple of quarters of data, you can see trends. And instead of saying, oh, we're going to grow to 74 clients next year, you have 5 right now. That's a pretty big 15-time increase. Okay, maybe we'll wait on that. But that helps you to really target realistic ones. And then it helps you break down your categories and see where are we making our money. So, for example, let's say that you do offer some of those things we had under the CEO of You Incorporated, and you end up speaking at a few more conferences and doing a lot more consulting, and you look at your budget and the breakdown of income and expenses, and you find, I didn't expect that, but I earned 35% of my income from consulting last year. What could I do differently to enhance that more, or do I need to charge more for that? So it allows you to break all those things down, analyze them, and do something meaningful with it. All right, so your action plan. Prior to next session, which is our last session, I can't believe it. Number 1, identify your 3 specific tiers of pricing. Now, you're going to change these over time. You're going to tweak them. But what are your initial 3 tiers based on what you're offering? You can add some add-ons to that if you want, but let's dial in 3 tiers. And second, complete a basic budget. Especially if you're just getting started, you're going to be just guessing at some of these numbers. But put together a basic budget for the next 3 to 6 months based on conservative revenue estimates. If you do only grow to 5 clients, what does that look like? What does that mean in terms of your budget and where you can spend money on other things? Maybe you do bump it up and say, or if I have 20 clients. Remember, you're not going to have 20 clients by next week, so it's not an average for that 6 months, but by the end of 6 months, what could that look like? So that's your homework assignment. Our last session, bringing it all to life. So thanks for hanging in with me a few extra minutes on this one. We'll see you at the next one, our final one. We're going to bring it all to life. Thanks, everybody.